Ave Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. After the 5,000 had eaten and were satisfied, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side, toward Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And when he had taken leave of them, he went off to the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was far out on the sea, and he was alone on the shore. Then he saw that they were being tossed about while rowing, for the wind was against them. About the 4th watch of the night, he came towards them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out. They had all seen him and were terrified. But at once he spoke with them. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." He got into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely astonished. They had not understood the incidents of the loaves. On the contrary, their hearts were hardened. The Gospel of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm has been the anthem of this time of Epiphany. Every nation on earth will adore you. It's not something that God is going to do by force. When Jesus came, he was meek and he was humble. He didn't do anything by force. Every nation on earth will adore you comes from enlightenment. When people realize that they must come to Christ, and this is available to every nation. It's especially important in times of difficulty and chaos and stress. In the early church, it's how they survived. They would adore the Lord, even in the midst of all the strife and the chaos, in the midst of the persecution, and in the midst of the good times as well. This week, we're going through a whole series of epiphanies. Every day is a different epiphany in the gospel. I don't know if you've noticed that. The first epiphany was the proclamation of the gospel by Jesus. The kingdom of God is at hand. And so the gospel is proclaimed, the light of the gospel, to enlighten the nations. Yesterday, it was the epiphany of the Eucharist and the manifestation of the loaves. And today, it's the epiphany of God's power and reign over all created things as the storm is quelled. It is the revelation of God's love that is so powerful that it is completely for the care of his people, to restore what was lost in Eden, so that there may be a new union and harmony between God's people and even the physical things of the earth. And one of the ways to approach that is the epiphany of God's love, as is carried through this week through the epistle of John. It is love that is more powerful than death, as the Old Testament tells us, and fear is not of love, we're told. And so Jesus introduces himself to quell fear by manifesting his love in the gospel today. The gospel writer tells us that he intended to pass by them. That does not mean he wanted to go to the other shore and not be seen by them. If you go back to the book of Exodus in chapter 33, Moses asks God if he can see him. I'd like to see you. And God says, no, you can't handle that. However, I'm going to show you my goodness. And the scriptures say that he passed by so that Moses could only see his back because he couldn't handle the full revelation of who God was. And so Jesus, it says, he intended to pass them by. The gospel writer is making us go back to the book of Exodus and say, yeah, Jesus is going to show them who he is. It's an epiphany. He reveals that he is in charge. He is all-powerful. And that all the perfections of love are to be found in him and being in union with him. Therefore, it is right and just that we adore him, especially in the Holy Eucharist, as we will be doing today, as we do on Wednesdays. Every nation on earth will adore you. And so he passes them by and he reveals his glory. They think it's a ghost. Like Moses, they can't handle the vision. But he gets into the boat and he shows them by quelling the storm, calming the sea. It reveals to us that when we begin to put our faith in the light of the gospel, when we begin to have our eyes fixed on the adoration of Jesus Christ instead of all the conflict of the world, then we begin to realize that even in the midst of a storm, in a fragile boat, the safest place to be is with Jesus in the boat, even when the waves look horrible. We adore Christ, and we're faithful to him, and we trust in his mercy.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.